Good morning on this Sunday, March 31st. Happy Easter and welcome to the Georgia Gang. Sine Die 2024 is in the history books, and the big story, lots of bills go down in flames. Also, defense attorneys in the 2020 election interference case try once again to get the case thrown out. And former insurance commissioner John Oxendine has pleaded guilty to federal charges related to an alleged health care scheme. Kathy, Phil, Theron, and Martha are all here. Welcome back, Kathy. The debate and discussion begin right now.
From the Fox 5 studios, the Georgia Gang starts now.
From immigration to transgender youth to sports betting, some of the issues left for the final day of the 2024 legislative session. So let's start with one of the major issues that did pass. In the wake of the murder of nursing student Laken Riley, there was a renewed effort to look at tightening Georgia's immigration laws. House Bill 1105 would force law enforcement to cooperate with federal agents enforcing immigration laws. It also would punish sheriffs who don't check the inmates' immigration status. Martha, this one, of course, passed along party lines.
Well, it shouldn't have. I mean, it should have been something that everybody wanted to have happen. I think it's a good thing that it passed, and I look forward to seeing the Laken Riley Act pass on the federal level too. On the U.S. Senate side, they only need 2 more votes for it to pass, and it ought to be our 2 Georgia senators. So I think this is a step in the right direction. It was the right thing to pass, and it was the right thing to do.
I think Theron would disagree with you.
I disagree that the bill, to me, still is left up to a lot of different things that are unanswered. How is local law enforcement really going to enforce this law? I think the Sheriff Association, correct me if I'm wrong, they didn't come out open arms and loving this new legislation. They said it was a step in the right direction. And so, you know, I think that, look, I've said this before. There are many other cases that are happening in Georgia, but the death of Laken Riley was definitely very tragic and sad. But I want to compliment the Republicans and Democrats, you know, Houston Gaines and others, Wheat Hour. They all from Athens, Couser. I mean, they came back and it was heated there that first week. But Democrats, in a very civil way, debated the bill. A lot of them, I think, all of them maybe voted against it. But ultimately, I think we all got to go in the right direction to make sure that the law is enforceable. And I think you won't see the last of this. I think you'll see law enforcement and sheriff's offices come out and speak out against some of the things that they were attacked on, some of the myths that were spread. But ultimately, it passed, and then we'll just see when the governor signs it.
Okay, I want to get to several issues, but I'll let you weigh in.
Well, just very quickly, I want to give a shout out to Representative Jesse Petrie. He actually introduced this bill before the murder of Laken Riley, and it had to do with the sanctuary cities. They should not be tolerated in this state because of the open borders the Biden administration has. This was very necessary. I'm like Martha, I don't know why most Democrats didn't support it. The Democrat sheriffs have been a problem in Gwinnett County and Athens and Clark County, where they just refuse to look at the citizenship status, and all these violent illegal aliens slip through the cracks. So it was a great bill.
Kathy.
I'm always hesitant to follow Phil because I just don't know what to say sometimes. But I think that, you know, one of the things we have to be really careful of is not encroaching on what is federal law and federal responsibility. And I think those are the things that we need to look at when all is said and done.
All right, well, let's move on because we've got a lot of issues to tackle here. The Senate hijacked a House mental health bill, and it turned into a social conservative catch-all measure. House Bill 1104 would ban students born as biological males from playing in girls' high school sports, ban the teaching of sex ed in grades 5 or lower, and force schools to notify parents whenever their children get books from the library. Now, it got through the Senate, but not the House, Kathy.
Well, thank goodness. We do this year after year after year, and it's only worse in election years when the General Assembly decides there's somebody they need to pick on. And for the last couple of years, it's been transgender kids, their families. And you know, I'm really getting tired of the General Assembly not focusing on issues that affect a broad swath of Georgians, and instead trying to tell parents and doctors and local school boards how to make decisions and do the best thing for the kids that they represent. So I'm glad it died, and I'm grateful for Speaker John Burns for keeping a steady hand on the stuff that comes through the House. We'll see as we talk more things that he probably had a hand in slowing down, but I have no doubt we'll see this again next year.
I think lots of folks are saying very reminiscent of Speaker Ralston, Phil.
Well, the House did slow down a lot of things. I've noticed this when I'm comparing it to other sessions. They had like a 2-hour dinner break on the last day, which they got wrapped around the axle apparently with sports betting and also maybe with a judge's pay raise that got killed. But this business, they call it cultural wars. I call it common sense when you have to have biological males in one locker room or bathroom and biological females in another locker room. That's going to come back. We need that in this state. I think that Speaker Burns said, we just ran out of time.
Well, I want to add my sort of acknowledgement of Speaker Burns as well. Kathy mentioned also Terry England in his office, his chief of staff. This was the right thing to do. I mean, Kathy said it well. I mean, this is a bill that was hijacked by State Representative Amari Crawford. Let's talk about who he is. And this is the part. One time I'm publicly disagree with my boy Bluestein over at AJC. He sort of said, State Representative Amari Crawford was like a deer in headlights. Well, it was very unfortunate what they did to him. This is a bill that was put in place to basically deal with homicide, like people who basically had mental issues. And he got there, he thought he was going to testify, and they stripped the bill and put in all this transgender language. So this is a well-accomplished lawyer, a DeKalb County Democrat, who still pushed on to try to get his bill passed. And unfortunately, it was hijacked, it was stripped, and with this language, it didn't pass. So definitely want to commend him for his courageous efforts.
Democrats have also stripped bills over the years. This is nothing really new.
It was a beautiful masterclass in how they do this, okay? And I enjoyed watching it from a strategic standpoint because he really didn't know what was happening. And I'm not criticizing him forever. It was just he's new to the process. I'm not suggesting the process was right, but I did enjoy watching it on that day. That hearing was like, oh my God, what is happening here? Because I've seen people happen to a bill that Shelley Eccles had last year. I think all of us would come up to a list of people that this has happened to over the years. So what happened to it is what I thought would happen to it. There were too many different issues in the one bill. Not that the issues weren't important issues that needed to be addressed, but there were too many different issues.
All right.
And it was suicide prevention. I'm sorry, I want to make sure we do that. But no, I think he did know. I mean, legislators, you're right. Anytime it can happen to anyone, you do it. But I think the fact that Democrats used to do it is not an excuse. I mean, the fact of the matter, Phil, we haven't been in power for a long time. So when you come on here and say Democrats do it, I want our viewers to understand that we haven't had
Jen
control.
Jordan and Burt Jones did it not too long ago. So
it's been a while since Democrats have been.
I don't have a problem with it.
Let's not lose sight, though, of what they actually did. Because a lot of people would have been very terribly impacted had this passed. So it is, strategically something that you can sort of look at and analyze and go, wow, they really,
So anybody can use any restrooms or bathrooms? You don't care about that?
No, I don't care about that,
Okay.
quite frankly,
Well,
Phil.
a lot of people
I don't
do.
think
A lot
it's
of people
I don't
do.
think it's a problem.
Well,
I think it's conflated, but I also think that we need to really be talking about things like Medicaid expansion that would impact hundreds of thousands of people and bring billions of dollars, and we don't talk about that.
You should be
but we
talking
talk about the
women's
one
sports being ruined.
We should talk about women's sports getting funding. That's what we should talk
Go
about.
ahead and talk about it.
That's
Let's do
right.
both.
But
All right.
it's getting in the way.
Since you mentioned sports, let me just talk about sports betting because it died once again. And I think, Theron, the proponents have to try new strategies because obviously nothing's working for them.
Well, I'm just fired up that Kathy's back. She gave me a wink. She's on it today. But no, listen, sports betting, we've been talking about this for almost a decade, and I'm disappointed. And I understand that, there was a lot of going on. I think the 2-hour break was definitely to talk about sports betting, as Phil talked out. But these representatives, now they eat during their breaks. So I don't want you to think they're still negotiating bills. They don't just go and kick out. And as a lobbyist, we try to find them in the hallways. A lot of them kind of disappear in the offices. But no, I mean, I just don't get it, Lori. I mean, I really honestly know that, we tried this a few years ago when I was on the team. We were loud about it. Then the last 2 years, they've kind of said, okay, let's keep it quiet. And then it made it out of the Senate, got over to the House, and didn't come up. And so I believe the sports betting team need to get back together because we just really don't know what happened. We don't know if the Democrats locked down this time. I've heard that Speaker Burns just probably has some fundamental issues with the bill and the sports betting and its
I mean, Martha, the problem is people are sports betting in Georgia,
They are,
and
yeah.
they're
They are
just
doing
doing it
it
illegally, and then Georgia's not getting any of the benefit
Well,
in terms
in
of
that
financial.
2-hour break, they may have been eating, but they also were having a House caucus meeting in one of the conference rooms. So
Look at you. You
they
know
were
that.
doing, I knew where they were. I had a friend of mine that actually wandered in there by accident, so I was able to get that information. But you're right. And look, I was one of these people that was on the fence about it, and I really thought ultimately it should have been passed. Now, I am a social conservative. I'm a religious voter. I'm one of those people that would generally be opposed to this. But I think that when you look down deeper and you see the RFRA didn't get through, well, sports betting didn't either. So I think in a way that was kind of I'm not saying there was a trade there, but religious voters got what they wanted by sports betting not getting through, but they didn't get what they wanted by RFRA getting through. Do you know what I mean?
Interesting,
So it was a
yes.
little bit of a trade there.
Well, a measure that would pause permitting of some new mines near the Okefenokee Swamp died in the Georgia Senate, and amid backlash really from key Republican leaders, Phil.
Well, I think Senator Steve Gooch actually made the argument that, look, you know, the Environmental Protection Agency for the state went through all these hearings. They're the rulemaking body, and you know what? Let's leave them alone and let them do it, rather than to overregulate and have state legislators start making environmental policy.
Kathy?
Well, he's not wrong on that, except to say that, you know, on the other side of that, some people think that the 3 years would sort of delay action on it long enough for you know, more political influence to happen as it happens. I guess what I want to say is once we destroy the Okefenokee Swamp, we don't get it back. And I think we have to be really thoughtful, and people need to pay attention to this. You know, I travel all over the world to beautiful natural places, and, you know, countries make money by preserving their natural environment, and we have an incredible gift in the Okefenokee Swamp.
I don't see where it's proven that it'll be destroyed.
That's right.
The site is
well,
away
I think it's not proven that it won't be destroyed, and I think that is too much of a risk on an asset this precious.
All right. Well, lawmakers did what they needed to do, and that was pass the budget, $36.1 billion. Gosh, I remember when it was $20 billion when I first started covering. But raises for state employees, more money for law enforcement and teachers. So that was good.
That was
for
good,
them.
except for one thing, and we've talked about the Department of Corrections and the crisis in our state prison system. I wanted to see much more done by the legislature. I wanted to see even a higher pay raise for those correction officers and other reforms.
Well, hopefully that's coming next session, because we know that they're going to do that study committee, so in the Senate. So up next, the attorney for former President Donald Trump cites the First Amendment and says the election interference case should be thrown out.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Email them at georgiagang@foxtv.com.
Fulton County Superior Court Judge Scott McAfee heard arguments this week from defense attorneys that the election interference case should be thrown out. Well, the reason this time, Mr. Trump's statements about the 2020 election amount to protected speech, under the First Amendment. Now this, as defense attorneys also appeal McAfee's decision to keep DA Fani Willis and her team on the case. Theron, what do you make of this First Amendment argument?
Well, I'm gonna go in reverse order. Let's deal with Fani Willis, right? I mean,
Well, wait, we're getting there.
No. I'll get there. I mean, I thought, okay, all right, I'll deal with it. So look, a judge came out months ago and said that this did not violate the First Amendment right? Free speech has been dealt with. So for the defense to come back and sort of try to make the defense argument that the First Amendment right by President Trump, former President Trump and others, is already, it's a no-brainer. It's not an issue. And then I'm just going to talk about, they're also talking about Fani Willis. I mean, I'm just going to say this, I think we just got to move on from that. I mean, it's come out. Nathan Wade is gone. He's not working with her anymore. She's gone on CNN to say that the trains are going to move forward. And so what that looks like, we ultimately got to wait to see.
Yeah, let's talk about that, because in an interview with CNN, Fani Willis said that her relationship with former Special Prosecutor Nathan Wade did not slow down the case, and that she's not embarrassed by anything that she's done, Martha.
Yeah, I mean, it may not have slowed down that case, but it slowed down 14,000 other cases that were affecting the people of Fulton County, and it slowed down 400 rape cases that happened in Fulton County. I get her argument. She wants to say, oh man, she can be having this relationship, and then she can be getting briefs out on time, and she can do all of this. Man, I just can't believe we're still talking about this. Okay, we just need to move on, and the people of Fulton County deserve better as far as their safety on a day-to-day basis. And they're not getting it from their jail, and they're not getting it from their DA.
But we can't move on until the appeals court decides whether or not they'll take it up.
Well, and this isn't the end of it. I mean, you know, the Trump attorneys are going to be fighting every step of the way and looking for drop pencils in every hallway, and you know, we're just going to play this all the way to the end. And I think DA Willis is just going to have to be very, very strategic about how she approaches this and what her comments are, but she's not the only person who works in that office. So other cases are proceeding while she may be distracted, and hopefully will not be as distracted in the future. I don't think this is the end of it, and I appreciate the judge for having a strong hand.
And Phil, Fani Willis is still out there, doing interviews interviews with CNN and
Right. I hope she's
responding.
gagged. I wish Judge McAfee would follow up on his threat. She's making all these public statements. But more importantly, let's go back to the First Amendment and free speech. I've been a journalist for most of my career. It's very important to that profession, but it should be important to everybody. Look at what we do on the Georgia Gang. This is protected speech right here. The viewers are looking at this. And Steve Sadow, Trump's attorney, whether you like Trump or not, made a very effective argument that you can even have false protected speech by a politician, yet it's still protected. They can still say it. And he said everything Trump said, is protected speech under the First Amendment. And I think it's very appealable when you look at this case. And I think you'll see a win for the First Amendment.
Well, I can't speak for everyone on this panel, and you're right. We do come on here every week and we, state what we think. But also, there's that little line at the end of our show, right? Fox 5 protects themselves and say the opinions and the expressions by the panelists.
That's protected speech.
Okay, it's protected speech.
Just like Trump.
Okay, but I'm gonna give you a difference. So then, if I decide to go outside of here and continue to spread a narrative, a false narrative, and then to call someone and try to get them to overturn
It's
the
protected
election.
speech.
I mean, that is where I think
But
this case
That's
is.
protected
all these
speech.
lawsuits, though, Theron, all they've done is throw gasoline on this whole thing. If it's that the fact of the matter is there are factions that don't want this to be over no matter what because they're making money off of it, they're raising money off of it, and it's on both sides. I'm not just blaming.
Okay.
I'm saying that's the fact of the matter. And these cases just keep throwing gasoline on that fire. This would have been gone a long time ago if these lawsuits hadn't been filed. These are frivolous by and large, and they're not going to go anywhere. And the people of Fulton County are being hurt by the fact this is going on in other criminal cases or not.
And the people of Fulton County indicted 19 people. They decided to move
That's
forward with
good.
19 people.
With 19
But the
people, what
lawfare,
about the 14,000?
that's being used against Trump and these defendants are actually helping Trump with his
That's true.
popularity in the polls. That's the ironic thing.
But popularity don't necessarily mean that you're innocent, all right? The fact of the matter is we cannot ignore the judicial process, and I know y'all respect it, right? You have to go before a group of your peers, the evidence is presented, and then they will decide whether or not the evidence that was presented to them deserves an indictment. So now they'll get their fair day in court, right?
I thought you were
And
talking about
voters-
Hunter Biden
Okay.
and Joe Biden there for a minute.
And voters will have their opportunity to decide if they,
They
like
will.
DA
Yes, they will.
They will.
Willis when it comes.
So let's move
voters
on.
will have the decision.
Let's move on. The mayor of Atlanta gave a State of the City address Monday that highlighted key issues, including affordable housing and a crackdown on crime, but a surprise announcement that MARTA would build 4 new train stations. Kathy, MARTA CEO said, though, these stations will not interfere with the plan to move forward with expanding the streetcar to the Beltline, and that is also a controversial plan.
Did you call on me so my head would explode on TV? Because I think you did. Let me just say this. I'm not sure MARTA can build anything. They haven't built anything in decades. I used to be their biggest champion. That day is no more. They are sitting on tons of taxpayer money. I know of no study that has indicated that any of these infill stations will help anything, and there is no master plan in the city of Atlanta that we are pursuing, despite the fact that voters have voted repeatedly to fund them to expand transit on the Beltline. That was the original intent of the project. I don't care what people say about it. And so even though we might have more infill, that's going to get suburbanites out to ride their bikes on the Beltline. It is not going to provide more mobility and more destinations for residents of Atlanta. Shall I go on?
Wow. And I had no idea that was in there.
I knew it. I mean, look, and that's why I had to respectfully disagree with my good friend Kathy. In full disclosure, I do represent MARTA. To say that they haven't built anything is a little disingenuous. There's projects in place to really expand transit. We're talking about the Bankhead station. We're talking about improvements to 5 points. There have been MARTA stations in Sandy Springs where you've seen growth on housing on top of it. Now, the issue with the Beltline, and that's where Kathy and I disagree. The mayor has stepped in and said he's going to allow the conversation to continue to evolve. So it's really, to me, to say that MARTA hasn't done anything and not able to build is, again, not correctly. The conversation with the Beltline, I think these 4 stations are good. It's going to be near to the Beltline. It's going to expand transit. But we got to really figure out, do we want a streetcar, a version of a streetcar going down the middle of the Beltline where you've had people in Ponce City Market, a group of people come together in a very well-walked area, say, hey, we don't need it.
A streetcar that nobody rides.
Wait.
Right.
Now, I don't want to delay this show. We may have to devote some time to it. But first of all, this project has been a transit project for 20 years.
It has.
We need no more discussion. What we need is action and decisions. We have rezoned 24 neighborhoods for transit-oriented density because 20 years ago, that's what MARTA said we need. You can't get around in a car in in-town Atlanta because of the density that we put there so MARTA would build.
But can you do that without a streetcar, without heavy rail, without, can you do it cheaper?
Sure.
A streetcar isn't heavy rail.
Right.
We can put it on there. We've done the studies. We did the first study of this 20 years ago. They're doing another study right now to study the same alignment that we studied 20 years ago.
But you
we
think
need to move
technology's
on.
come a a little bit further than a streetcar with all of the
You don't
wires and everything.
absolutely.
Right?
You don't have to have all of the wires. That's the thing. They should be doing an RFP right now, asking people who build these things how to do it without the wires, less cost, and how fast can they do it.
I'm not going to.
That hadn't happened, and they've had 20 years to put that out.
You were one of the people who birthed the idea of the Beltline. I will give you that credit. I remember your counsel. However, I just think that to Lori's point, we can do a lot of things like BRT. I know you're best Robert Travis. We were talking about PRT, but I think that look, when you have people along the Beltline to say, look, we want it to continue to be walkable. We're going to continue to, and we want to look at it.
The right of way is there.
It is
this
there.
Does not interrupt anything about what's already there. The right of way is 75 feet wide, and all that stuff you see with wildflowers, that's where the transit lines are supposed to go. And you got to do transit because they got to go two ways. You'll have buses running into each other if you try to do something like that on the streets.
The deal. I have to wrap.
I
but
know you do.
You're back next week.
Yep.
So we are going to take
We'll talk about it more.
the entire block, third block next week, and let's talk about this more.
Thank you.
Because I need to get y'all's opinions too. So coming up, Forsyth County moves forward with a plan to try and bring NHL back to Metro Atlanta, but the developer now has concerns.
Join the discussion on the Georgia Gang Facebook page and watch past episodes on the Georgia Gang YouTube channel.
This week, Forsyth County Commissioners approved a proposed 100-acre live-work-play development that would center around a hockey arena and the hopes to bring back NHL to Metro Atlanta. But the developer behind the idea says he was disappointed in the last-minute changes to the approved plan, Martha.
Gee, how many times have we talked about bringing a hockey team to Atlanta or Metro Atlanta? It's happened a lot of times. I mean, my dad and I used to go to the Flames games way back when. That's dating myself. But look, I think that there needs to be more of a look at this. I think it's not gone. I think that it's good. I think it's a good idea. I don't know if ultimately you're going to end up with a hockey team though, but the live, work, play kind of concept, whether it's Avalon or whatever it is really working. We're also seeing it up where I live.
Well, I agree with that. It's called The Gathering, and I think it's a good thing. It's just, a mile away from 400, and I don't know what the last-minute changes to the plan were. I know that developer Kraus has got the money behind this. I don't think it would fail.
No.
Sometimes these projects just fizzle. I don't think that'll happen.
I just think that if we're going to continue to be a sports town that we can be, we're missing hockey right now. Deals do change. You're right, and it's Forsyth County and the developer and the constituents and the people who are doing the deals all up there. But I think that we need a hockey team. Now, I'm not a big hockey fan, but I do remember going to the Thrashers games a couple times, and it was a good experience.
Well, there's a couple of adult leagues that are very prevalent in Forsyth and Cherokee and Gwinnett, those kind of things. Sorry.
It's okay. I grew up in Pittsburgh, so you know I'm a hockey fan. Former insurance commissioner and gubernatorial candidate John Oxendine back in the news this week after pleading guilty to federal charges in an alleged healthcare scheme. According to the indictment, while he worked as a private attorney, Oxendine conspired to provide fraudulent insurance claims to major healthcare providers for unnecessary medical tests for kickbacks. Phil, he's set to be sentenced in July.
That's right. Boy, it seems like time flies. It was in 2010 when he was the leading candidate for the Republican nomination for governor, and then he got on television, and then his poll numbers dropped. But that's a discussion for another day. He flew too close to the sun. He played fast and loose. It took a long time for the courts to work, the court system to work, but he's paying the price.
Kathy?
I hope he pays the price. We'll see in July if he gets a good sentence. But I just want to say my wife and I successfully sued him in court because he told Georgia businesses they couldn't offer domestic partnership insurance to their employees. He lost that one, and as far as I'm concerned, he's been a loser ever since.
We've had our share of insurance commissioners. Huh?
It seems like it's a problem, but I don't think we'll have it with John King.
No,
John King
not at all.
is a really
A former
straight
police chief
arrow.
He's the one who came in to clean it all up.
That's right.
He's a good
That's
man.
right. He's
That
gonna
actually
clean it
was
up.
the governor told him, clean this up.
Yeah, because we've had a
And
series.
he is.
Yeah, and
Don't
he
forget
did.
Jim Beck.
So shout out to John King, the insurance
That's
commissioner.
right.
Shout out
He's
to
our
Commissioner
winner,
King.
and we'll have more winners and losers after the break.
Time now for the week's winners and losers.
All right, Martha, pretty in pink today.
Thank you very much. My co-host Pastor Rod Huey, passed away this week. We've been praying for him for, a number of weeks.
Sorry.
His wife Val and has 9 children. Youngest is Gail, 6 years old, and so services have not been determined yet. But he was a great guy, and I met him. This is us with Senator Warnock in our station, my boss Bill Main, and me. So rest in peace, Rod Huey. We appreciate it very much. And 75th anniversary of WDUN this week, and we will be celebrating. We're moving to a new studio on the square. We're going to have y'all all over there later in April, and we're going to look forward to doing that.
Congrats,
Thanks.
Barron.
All right, condolences, Martha. I'm going to go through this real quick. We have a lot of retiring legislators. So Senator Valencia C., Horaceena Tate, Shelley Echols, Gloria Butler, my boo, from DeKalb County, Representative Roger Bruce, Kimberly New, Mandisha Thomas, Jake Hollins, Pedro Marin, my good friend in Gwinnett County, Gloria Frazier, Jody Lott, James Beverly, the leader of the House, Robert Dickey, Clay Perkle, and Penny Houston, and also Barry Fleming, who was appointed to the judge the session, and also we can't forget Richard Smith, who unfortunately passed. And then lastly, the Secretary of the Senate, David Cook, who's retiring as well.
That's a lot of knowledge. That's leaving.
A lot of people leave.
Yes.
Those are good winners. I'm going to make Happy Easter and all the Christians, millions around the world that are celebrating this great religious holiday. And 2 winners, the anti-swatting bill and the squatter bill. No more squatters. Toughened up.
All right, Kathy.
I just want to make a winner of Speaker John Burns for really having a steady hand over in the House, as we discussed, and killing some of the things that need to be put to rest in this session, and look forward to seeing many years of him helping guide legislation in the state. Also, Jeff Graham and Georgia Equality are my winners for fighting the fight every year against RFRA, these anti-trans bills and other things that target people when we really need them to do more important things. And my loser of the week is GOP First Vice Chair Brian Pritchard for voting illegally.